Any other thing, it's the thing I want to share with you guys because it was probably the greatest gift that was ever given to me besides the birth of my children. And so I'd just like to share that with you guys right now, what did take place in this particular place. Well, sometimes we reach these moments in our lives that they call existential crises, or whatever. These moments where we're kind of struggling to find out, what the purpose and direction of life is. When I was about 32, 33 years old, I found out that my wife at the time was pregnant with what was going to be our first child. It was going to be a boy. We'd done the ultrasound. And I was all excited about that. Unfortunately, the very same week I found out I was going to have my first child, I also found out that my mother was going to die from cancer, that she'd been diagnosed as terminal. And so I was really in a very confused state. And what happened was we had already made a vacation plan, just like a lot of us now probably want to get out of here. At that time, I was living in Massachusetts, and it was another one of those cold, horrible winters. And so we made a trip to go out to Arizona, which is obviously a lot nicer at this time of year. And so we went out to Arizona, and I had these two things in my mind about death and about life. And then I had this kind of my imagination ran with me the first night I was there. I was in Phoenix, and I had this visualization of my son being born. And I could see my son being born, and I could imagine him going through the different stages of his life. I could see him like in kindergarten, elementary school. And I could see myself getting older right beside him. So when he was in elementary school, I'd be in my 40s. Was in high school, I'd be in my 50s. And I could see my father getting older right next to him. And then I could see as my son got older, and he became an adult, and he got married, and had his own kids. I could see that I would now be like in my 70s, and my father would be dead. And then my son, he would have his own sons, and he would be getting older. And then at some point I'd be dead. And then at some point my son would be dead. And at some point his son would be dead. And at some point his son would be dead. In the end, we all just do the same crap, and we all just die.
That's right.
And I said, what's the freaking point? It's all the same old crap, and it ends the same old way. And I tried to work my mind through it. I tried to find a solution to this dilemma, and I couldn't. I couldn't get anywhere with it. And there I was stuck with it. Went to bed, the next morning I woke up, I have no idea, but it wasn't really on my mind. I had a nice breakfast. I remember that, a lot of bacon. And we got in the car and we drove from Phoenix to a place called Sedona. And has anybody ever been to Sedona in here? Okay, is it beautiful?
The most.
It's one of the most beautiful places you'll ever see, right? Absolutely. So, and it's shocking too. If you're not from Sedona, if you haven't seen it, it'll kind of blow you away. I think that it reminded me if you've never seen the ocean before, you saw the ocean, you're like, what is that? Wow. That's the way it was. So we're driving along, and all of a sudden, everything turns red. That's what Sedona is. Everything's red in Sedona. There's red mountains, the ground is red, it is beautiful. And so we're driving along, Sedona appears, we drive into Sedona, and at some point we decide to get out and kind of do a little bit of sightseeing, check the place out. And this is when the most extraordinary thing that's ever happened to me happened to me. And I just want to give two caveats to this before I tell you the story. The first thing is this. What I'm about to tell you is true. In other words, I believe it's true. It happened to me. There's no way I can convince you it's true. And you can certainly believe when I'm done telling you the story that's a bunch of baloney. Again, that's your right. Number two, some of the stuff I'm going to tell you is going to be a little bit out there. So I want to also emphasize, because I know that people think this, that when it happened, I was not on drugs. This is important to understand. This is a completely sober experience, which I think is important. It's important to me, at least, that's understood. And it is important to me that it happened in a sober state of mind. Okay, so here we go. So we get out of the car, and the first thing that happens, and in the distance is that particular mountain. And the first thing that happened is I get hit with a feeling and a sensation. It's kind of like a sound. And a lot of this stuff is hard to describe. But the best I can do is give you kind of an idea. It was like I got hit with this awesome feeling and sound that sounded like this. Can you hear that? And it went all through me. And it just lit me up with the most amazing, contented feeling. It was beautiful. And I looked up, and there were three mountains in front of me. And the one in the middle was that one, which is called Bell Rock. I didn't know it at the time, but that's what it's called. And I felt like that mountain was a magnet. And I was a piece of metal, and it was pulling me towards it. And so I started to walk towards it. And as I went towards this mountain, the feeling increased. It got more and more intense. And what accompanied the feeling, what started to accompany the feeling, was an awareness. And the awareness was that every single thing, including myself, was the same thing. that the sky and the ground and the mountain and the rabbits and the cactus and everything around me was the same exact thing. And the knowledge of that gave me the greatest sense of contentment that I could possibly describe to you. Later on, when I came back from Sedona, that's when I started to become a philosopher. And I started to read a lot of things. And one of the things I read was Buddhism. And I realized later on from reading Buddhism that what I experienced is what they call nirvana. In Buddhism, they believe that all of our pain and suffering comes from desire. And desire brings us pain because we separate ourselves from other things. So we're always comparing, competing, and challenging, and striving, and struggling, when in fact, the goal of Buddhism is to realize that every single thing, every single person, is the same thing. And once you realize that everything's the same, there's nothing to fight for. There's nothing to struggle against. So, without knowing anything about Buddhism, I understood that in that moment, total epiphany. And I just continued to walk because I wanted more of whatever this thing was, because it felt like, again, you can't believe what it felt like. And so I continued to walk until I got to this plateau, and I climbed up the plateau, and I was about maybe 200 feet from this particular mountain. And I was just taking it all in, just loving the feeling and the knowledge. And over my left shoulder was an eagle flying in the sky. And he was just zigzagging in the currents. And I was looking at the eagle, I was taking it in, and all of a sudden I became aware of the fact that there was this weird consistency all around the eagle. Like it looked like if I reached out and touched it, the whole scene would ripple. And then I became aware of the fact that the eagle I was looking at, that he wasn't really there. That he was there 1,000 years ago. And then I became aware that the eagle was always there. That it was always in that spot. And then, now you guys are really going to think I was on drugs. At that particular moment, I left my body, and I was in the eagle's body. Yeah, right? Weird. And time changed too. It turned into 1,000 years before. And the scene I was looking at was through the eagle's eyes. I felt like what it felt like to be in an eagle's body. And I was looking down at all kinds of things that he was looking at. The one thing I really remember was there was a couple of Indians, or Native Americans, and they were poking around in like the ashes of a fire. And it changed from it was like, I was there at 10 o'clock in the morning, but it turned to like 6 o'clock at night. And the time had changed a little bit too, besides that I'd gone back in time like 1,000 years. Now, as amazing as it felt, and it felt incredibly amazing, as you guys would all, I guess, would probably imagine. For some reason, I said to myself, or I said to whatever was happening, I said, enough. And I came back to myself. And now, for that moment, in that moment, and for the rest of my life until I died, I was no longer an agnostic because I was aware of what it was. I was aware that this was God showing me this. And so I became a theist, and that's the way I will always be. And as I was standing there, I was like praising God. Again, I have not much practice at this, but I was saying, thank you, God, oh my God, thank you, God, all this kind of stuff. And then I looked up, and on the mountain on the left-hand side was an Indian standing there. And again, it was this weird consistency all around him. Like if I reached out and touched it, the whole thing would ripple. And I looked at this Indian, and I became aware of the fact that in reality he wasn't really there. That once again I was looking into the past, that this was 1,000 years before. And then all of a sudden, in a quick moment, I could see the Indian's face close up. Again, weird, it was my face. And then this Indian spoke to me. He didn't move his lips. He just spoke to me like, brain to brain. And what the Indian told me was this. He told me the answer to the question from the night before. I kept asking, what's the freaking point? In other words, what's the meaning of life? What the hell are we doing here? And the Indian told me, he said, the point is to love. He said, you've lived 1,000 lives, and this is the only thing you're supposed to understand. And he told me a bunch of other things too, which I won't really bore you with. Not that I bore you with it, but I don't want to really get into that too much right now because I just want to focus on that particular piece of it. Well, anyways, I went back to my wife at the time, and I told her what happened, and this thing that had talked to me, the thing that had showed me stuff, and it had also given me something. It also put into me this energy, this different kind of energy, which is just pure love and contentedness. And I came back to it, and I looked like the Joker. I had a smile from ear to ear. And that smile stayed on my face. I kid you not, and if you knew me at the time, you might be able to vouch for this. It stayed on my face for like a year. Al?
Yes.
It did. And Al knows me. I'm a pretty passionate guy, and I can be a little bit rough. Right, Al?
Yeah.
Yeah. In that year's period, you could come up to me and tell me, go blank, 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 right? And I would look at you and go like, I'm so sorry you feel that way. You know? I mean, I really, really had compassion and love for everybody. I understood that anybody's anger just came from their pain. I could just see it. And it was because of this spirit that had entered into me, this core, that oh, by the way, I didn't tell you, I forgot to tell you. When this thing told me that the point is to love, it said, this is the author, this is the spirit, I'm sorry, that is the author of you, and it's the author of everything, and it's pure love. And your soul is a spark that comes from it, and your soul is pure love. But as you get older, you get distracted. You get lost from that. Well, in that year's period, that's all I saw, that's all I felt. I could just see people's goodness, and I could just feel my own goodness, my own love. And I had a whole bunch of really, really awesome and crazy and different experiences. So, brings me to this. Is it true? In other words, I'm a philosopher. So I got to get back to the good, the true, and the beautiful. Is it true? Is the point to love? Well, skip. Yeah, there we are. Love. Is that it? Is that what it's all about? What do you guys think? How many of you guys think it is? Is that why we're here? Okay. I think I can prove to you that it is. That's what the rest of the presentation is. So, let's get at it. When it comes to being a human being, we got 3 tools, essential tools that allow us to understand what the meaning of life is. I've showed you freedom, and I've showed you humility. Now I'd like to focus on the last one. The one that hopefully you're honing as you're a student. Hopefully you hone the rest of your life. You have a whole set of experiences, and you have your mind with this thing, this capacity that's different than every other animal on the planet. It's the ability to use reason, to see if things are logical, to see if they make sense, if they're consistent, if you can make universal laws out of things. And I'm trying to propose to you guys that there is a universal law to your happiness, and that is to love. Well, let's start with this. Whenever we don't have love, what do we have? You take love out of the equation, any situation, what do you get? What's that? You get depression. Anything else? Pain. Anything else? Vanity. Anything else? Suffering, misery, right? Horror. Are these the things we get when we don't practice love? Hell yes. And when we do? Right? You know this. Your experiences show you this. Your reason proved this to you. So I thought about it a little bit more, and I said, okay, as I was creating this presentation, I said, love what specifically? Now I'm going to ask you guys to help me out with this. For some reason, my presentation came into 3 triangles. I don't know how the hell it happened, but it happened. So I got 3 triangles, and love's another one of these triangles. What are the 3 things we're supposed to love? You said yourself. You got that right. What else? Family? Can I expand family and say others? Does that work for you guys? Cool. One other thing. Life. Bingo. Who said it? Genius. Thank you. So these are the 3 things. This is the answer. What is the meaning of life? Love. Love what? Love life. You know, the t-shirt people got it right. Life is good. If you're an optimist, you guys realize an optimist is someone who loves life. They believe in life. An optimist, if you put 50 optimists in for a particular surgery and 50 pessimists, and there's been study after study after study that show this, you put 50 pessimists and 50 optimists in for the same type of surgery, the same type of treatment, the optimist will live longer. The optimist will do better. Optimists do better in every category you could possibly imagine. If you love life, life loves you back. And to do the opposite doesn't pay. It just doesn't pay to not appreciate. Do you guys know there's been studies done on the people that are the most successful in their businesses? Do you know what they all have in common in their fields?
They all believe.
You think it's high IQ? You think it's background? No, you know what it is? They love what they do. Al, you love what you do? Yeah, you do. Mr. Joyce, you love what you do? Yep. You're damn right. Can you guys tell they love what they do? Right. And when Mr. Joyce and myself and Mr. Costa, when we come to work every day, we don't dread it. We love it. We love what we do. We love you guys. We love this place. That's what it's all about. You want to be successful? Feel free to chase money. There's no indication that's ever brought anybody an ounce of happiness. There is every indication that loving what you do will bring you happiness. So what your job is to find things that you love that help you, that bring people happiness. Nobody has ever looked back at their life and says, drugs have brought me happiness. Nobody's ever looked back at their life and said, oh, money has brought me happiness, or power has brought me happiness. In point of fact, when people look back at their lives and they're happy with what they are and what they've become, they look back at the relationships they've made. They look back at the times they've had with people they love. And hopefully they've created a world for themselves that they're proud of, that they're happy to live with it. And that's your job. I know your job right now is to learn calculus and history and math, and that stuff has its place. But in the end, your job is to find what you love, to find the things in life that bring you happiness, that are healthy things. You know, exercise, friendships. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Music, sports. These are the things in life that count for something. So, I wish you well with that, big time. And I hope you take it seriously. So, what's the next one? Others. So one thing is love life. It's better for you. You'll live longer, you'll live better. The second thing is to love others. Not always easy. But in point of fact, this is one of the points of being here. Two of the greatest thinkers in history, two of the greatest contributors to happiness in the history of mankind and womankind are these two figures right here. Two of my favorites, Jesus and Buddha. And when you get to the core of what their religions were all about, it's very simple. It just is love other people. Be compassionate. Give people a break. Give them a hand. Once again, when it comes to you guys, it's the simple stuff. Make sure that a friend of yours doesn't get in a car when he's drunk. Make sure that if a girl's drunk, that she doesn't wander off with a couple of guys. Take care of each other. You are responsible for each other. We are all our brothers and sisters' keepers. This is one of the main reasons we're here, is to look out for each other. And if you look out for each other, you can live with your head held high. You can live like a noble person, respected by all. Do you guys understand what I'm talking about? That's what it's about. So whether you're studying Jesus, who says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, which, by the way, as far as reason goes, is as purely true as 1 and 1 equals 2. How can that not be true? How can you not treat people the way you want to be treated? If you don't treat people the way you want to be treated, you are a liar and a hypocrite. It is your job to find out what you want and make sure that you're giving that to other people. And if you do that, you will be surrounded by like-minded people. And it all comes around. If you want to be loved, be lovable. Movements like MLK and Gandhi, I mean, this proves it, too. In case you don't think that this works and think it's only like a small thing, it's not a small thing. You can move mountains with this idea of compassion and love. These two movements were led by guys in societies that everything was against them. In America in the 1950s, the entire state apparatus was against blacks. The laws were against them, the customs were against them, the legal system was against them, and yet MLK used passive resistance. He used love. He refused to fight back. Instead, he showed the people that were attacking him that they were better. The people that were fighting, the MLK and his people, were better because they would show them love and compassion, regardless of how cruel they were. All they demanded was to be treated in the same way. And the same is true of the story of India. The story of Gandhi, it's the same story. So again, it's not something that's intangible and unmeasurable. I don't know if anybody in this room knows this person. Does anybody? Okay, how many people do you know that? Okay, before you guys all came here, there was a woman that worked here. When I came in, I was a young guy. Her name's Betty Cianci. And again, when I point out MLK and Gandhi, I'm afraid that you guys might think that you have to be like a superhero, legendary, historical figure to make this happen. It's not true at all. All of us do it. We all do it every day if we want to. And Betty Cianci was one of the nicest people I've ever met in my life. And when I came to this school, she was a person that was here, and what she did for everybody in the school was she told them every day that they were special. And she told them every day that she loved them. She worked with the toughest kids in this school, kids that most teachers would have been horrified to go near. And for her, they would have taken a bullet for her. They loved her beyond belief because every day she told them what she told me every day. She told me every day that I was special, I was wonderful, and she loved me. And she meant it. And so I believed it. She made me feel better about myself. You guys all have that in you. You can make other people's day. And I hope when you leave here today that you try to do that. I hope that you try to help other people. I hope that you tell people they're good. I hope that you look out for people. It's the best we can do in this world. And I know that you'll feel awesome about yourself because in the end, if you want to be loved, be lovable. That's an old Roman poet named Ovid said this. If you treat people with love, you'll get it back. That's karma. That's the law of the universe. And remember, everyone, including yourself, is fighting a hard battle. We all need a break. We all need a hand up. We all need a compliment. Which brings us, there you go, to self. In the end, the most important thing to have is love for yourself. If you don't love yourself, you're not going to project out onto the world. You're not going to project it onto others. And it's not always easy, obviously. We have struggles, we have difficulties, we have challenges. But in the end, do everything you can to look back into yourself and realize that at your core, you are a beautiful person. You're a good person. And that you deserve your own love and respect more than anything. And I think, wait a second, I'm missing something here. Well, again, guys, this is my first presentation. I know what happened. I have to talk to Mr. Gibbons about this. So, anyways, guys, in the end, it comes down to this. You might not have to change the world. In fact, most of us aren't going to change the world. There's very few Martin Luther Kings and Gandhis among us. But there are plenty of Mr. Joyces, plenty of Mr. Costas, plenty of Betty Ciancis, plenty of you guys. And together, if we love ourselves, we love each other, and we love our lives, we make our world into a beautiful place. We give our world and we give ourselves meaning. And that's what it's all about. So I appreciate you coming and listening. I hope